what I have asked the panelists to do is to now give us one or two big challenges. Now, there are some conditions to these challenges. One is the challenges need to incorporate both complexity and new health technologies. So it's the interaction between the two, since this is the big overarching theme of this seminar. And secondly, that they need to be the kind of challenges that could be translated into potential projects, because this is the whole. This is the whole objective for this afternoon. Now, what will then happen? I will write them very briefly up on the wall behind me, and then I will ask you to form groups. Totally random. Just turn around to your neighbor to both pick up the one you find most appealing and with greatest potential, and if you reject all of them, then find another challenge that you find is essential and appealing and has not come up. Now, what will happen then is that we will ask you to report back again very briefly, and once we have the final set of challenges, then you can choose which challenge you want to address as a potential project. So that means that you are very interested in this topic, you would like to be involved with it, discuss it further, and then we will break out in breakout groups to discuss those in greater detail. And I will take you through what you will need to do in your groups then. So to begin with, simply I will ask all my panel members to, from everything that we've discussed today, to come back with one or two key challenges, please. Okay, who would like to start? Who's ready? Jeff? And I will try and capture some of the ideas.
I suggest you cycle through to give the others time to think.
Okay.
So anyway, I have one which is basically, I call it from motherhood and apple pie to convincing argument for policy. So my grand challenge is that we live in a world where some scientists are making a correct prognosis for bad things happening in the future, and they are ignored or not heard. And so is it possible to recognise what they're saying as being in some way well-based, well-formed predictions for the basis of policy?
Okay, I'm going to give a kind of intro, and then I'll get to the question. Okay, so you don't have to. So the intro is we have a global bioeconomy / innovation system / knowledge production system, which is, as we know from discussion today, very complex in terms of its characteristics, ranging from the basic science through the translational research. This is in new health technologies, through preclinical experimentation, clinical trials, scale-up, therapeutic production, those types of phases, and it's global. My question is, what are the drivers in this knowledge production process, and what are the drivers of the governance response to it? So, for example, are the drivers power interests, for example, transnational industry, particularly the pharmaceutical industry, transnational science, which is international and influential? Is it patient groups? Are they emerging as a factor in terms of the formation of this global knowledge economy? Is it national political cultures? Is it competition between states for advantage in the global knowledge bioeconomy? Is it, finally, regulatory structures? Oh, another final one. Is it the relationship between the knowledge economy and financial markets, which has been raised, for example, venture capital? All these factors might act as drivers of the development of this complex system. But do they, and secondly, do they impact on the nature of governance of that system? Okay?
Well, the challenge that I'm putting forward comes from Joyce's explanation of managed evolution. Joyce, you said evolution needs variation, and you need to inject this variety, and then watch evolution happen. So what kind of variation do we actually need in biotech? And how can policymakers create this supportive environment for such a variation?
That's excellent. Thank you very much. In fact, mine is very much linked with that one, and I would simply add about the conditions to facilitate coevolution. Sorry.
What is coevolution again?
What is it, or?
Yeah, what do you mean by coevolution?
Oh, what I mean by coevolution is reciprocal influence between interacting entities which actually change the behavior of those entities. So it's influence that changes behavior, and it has to be reciprocal. It's not one way. If it's one way, it is adaptation. If it's both ways, then it's co-evolution. I'm making that distinction.
Governance is influencing biotech sector, and the evolution of the biotech sector will,
yes,
in turn, change governance.
Yes.
So it's not a specific thing to talk about, just talking in general about co-evolution.
No. I'm talking about those things that we're really referring to here. Not just this is not just a theoretical point; it's a very practical point. In other words, because we were talking so much about managed evolution, I prefer to put it in terms of facilitated coevolution rather than managed evolution. And we're talking about enabling environments rather than just regulation. So it's really bringing both the regulation and the enabling environment both into play, not just regulation. So that is really what I'm talking about. So it's really both regulation plus an enabling environment, which may not necessarily have to do with regulation. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Peter.
Yeah, okay. I'm close to those latter ones actually.
In fact, I'm gonna. Yeah,
one of the.
If I put it down here, can you see it? Yeah.
Okay. One of the. At one point, our centre had three sort of major projects running, and one was with GSK, one was with British BA Systems, and the other was with the Discount House in the financial heart of London. And to me, as a son of a local government officer, I realised with a shock one day that these major pillars of the economy were gamblers, were incredible gamblers. They relied on the big drug and not, and the airplane. If one airplane doesn't work, you can pack up. Go. Anyway, so the point is that gamblers, so that's all part of creative destruction, because eventually gambles fail and the economy renews itself by bankruptcy, which is possibly better than evolution does it by death, let's say, but this is sort of the death of firm. It's also very expensive, moving towards a less sort of destructive way. The other thing that's important is that in ecology, a resilient ecosystem emerges in a turbulent area. So in other words, temperate climate ecosystems are much more resilient than tropical ones, which are very stable, where you change one thing and the soil falls off and it never comes back. So the point about that is that when an industry is dominated by a certain number of players, as it gradually becomes, they move to reduce their own risks, and they create what is actually potentially the scene for a big catastrophe, for a big change. And so that lock-in is something that, how to avoid that. Anyway, so and the other thing, just saying, is that risk aversion therefore has to be maintained in a system, because the only safe situation when you can say, gosh, they can't get me now, is when you're dead. So in fact, keeping alive is all about that. So, okay, coming down to the challenge then. After Joyce's talk, I was saying something like, what should the mission statement be for the regulatory authority? What should it be? And as part of that, and that is part of, rather, building resilient well-being. So rather than whatever health thing you called it, it goes wider than that. It goes as far as Sainsbury's and the well-being shelves. So that's a broader term, because what we really want is, as was pointed out, that it's not just giving people medicines or something. It's about living. It's about how you live. So actually there is a bigger system. Complexity should at least recognise that bigger system. That was you that said the housing and thing are incredibly important compared to spending money on delivering drugs or something. So that is a whole, and that has to be considered. So in a way, that's as part of that, what should be the mission statement of the regulatory authority kind of fits within a very large challenge, which is this kind of building society with resilient well-being. How do you have... we all want sort of risk aversion. That's what the regulatory process is there for. We don't want to kill too many patients. So, of course not. But the point is that if you kill innovation, then how many of the millions of people in the future are not going to be saved because you never have the innovation? So, in other words, it's a complicated argument. And so keeping risk aversion, stopping companies from building such a defence that they don't have to do anything. Sort of.
Okay, can you then summarise that as a challenge for me?
Well, right. What is the meaning of life?
I think that's what we'll end up with, I know. Yeah.
No, okay, well, I'd go for the mission statement, actually, because most regulators don't know what they're supposed to be doing. So discussing properly what they ought to be doing is a good idea.
So mission statement for
regulatory, yeah.
Okay. So, what I now invite you to do is, as I said, turn your chairs round. They move easily, or take your group, go outside, go next door, whatever you want to do. As I said, see if any of these you want to discuss further and perhaps surface some other issues associated with it. And if you do not like any of them, then what would your challenge be? What would you feel passionate in becoming involved with? Now, timing. Now, we need to include tea in this. We need to be back at 15:45 for the main exploration of the topics. So I think if I ask you to come back at 25:02, no, come back at 1:45, as long as you've got your challenge, single challenge on one flip chart. Now, we have a lot of flip charts around that Wojtek will provide you. You can have one each. They are post-it ones, so they can be stuck up on the wall. So you come back with one big challenge for your group and put it up anywhere on the wall where there is space, because then we will need to, then people can choose for the second session which ones they want to discuss in terms of projects. Is that clear? If it's not clear, say so now before we go off and do. One request is that could the panelists and the speakers sort of distribute ourselves between the different groups. I would suggest 5 to 7 per group, not many more than that. Otherwise, you will not have the opportunity to have your own say. Okay, off you go. 10 round. Say hello.